Alrighty guys, another week, another step forward towards the whole Grand Servant campaign that we have going on over here on the JP side of things. If you're playing the global version, or maybe you've just been living under a rock and you do play the JP side of things, essentially they're rolling out a new way to buff our servants where I believe they need to be bond 10 fully leveled up and you have to have their skills done. And the only thing that we know, at least so far, is that when you make your servant a Grand Servant, you can use their Bond CE and a normal one. And we're probably going to get more details about that when the whole thing actually releases. But in preparation for that, every single servant that had come out up until that point, the beginning of 2025, is going to be getting an individual rate-up. So if there was a limited servant you wanted, maybe it's an old summer servant, an old, I don't know, like Halloween servant, whoever have you, right? They're going to be coming back around on these banners. So what I've been doing is just going over which ones I think are good to summon on, which ones might have some highlighted characters on them, because some of them do bring back some either popular lower rarity servants, or they feature like really good story lock servants, like say Bedivere on them, and it does make some of the banners a little tantalizing. Now, this one you'll notice is kind of short because a lot of these main class banners get split into 2 different weeks. So this will be out for, the first week of right now, like it just dropped today. But then this is the first half of the Lancers, and the second half will drop next week, because you'll notice that in this week there is no Melusine, and obviously every single character is coming out, so that'll be next week's video when we cover those ones. So let's just go over it if you want to document it for, your NA summoning plans, or you're playing on JP and you're trying to fill a niche in your box, whatever have you. This will just kind of give you a good idea of whether or not these banners are worth summoning on. And the first banner over here is Skahawk. And man, this is a character that if you've been a long-time viewer know that I have gone up and down all around over for, because when I was starting off the channel, I was like, Skahawk is good. She can really output a lot of damage, but her problem is that she's not very consistent. She's kind of a one-pump chump. She'll drop a really big NP and then really have no way to get it back. But then they started giving her little buffs here and there, a little battery here, a little way to, actually get her crit damage to guarantee that she's going to get that on her first skill. And then now she just straight up has a skill that gives her NP whenever she attacks, so she can more easily fire a follow-up NP. Alongside having people like Ruler Skadi and Caster Skadi in the game to just give her fat globs of NP. So really, she's just a really good damage dealer in the game in general, with, mainly you're going to be leaning on her Divine Power mod, which is quite strong when going up against bosses and other servants. Unfortunately, the 4 stars that are on rate up aren't exactly the best, because I do think you should be trying to min-max a little bit if you're just looking for a good Lancer. If you don't really have anybody in particular to go for, it's kind of better to try to min-max a good servant that's the 5-star, but then also a good low rarity servant, so if you don't hit the 5-star, you can at least walk away with a decent consolation prize. Now, Liz is a little bit old. She used to be really good back in the day because you could double buff your female characters, which is not exactly the line you want to be hitting with supports nowadays. They do a little bit more than just simply giving you a 40% attack buff, so I do think she's aged out quite a bit, but it is one of those characters that is wildly popular, and then I wouldn't doubt they would toss her something decent for maybe an anniversary, or if we get another Fate Extra campaign, or I don't know, they might just toss Eliza buff randomly on Halloween. Now, Finn is actually pretty interesting because he's actually not all that bad if you need an Arts AoE looper. He can actually refund rather well. I just don't think he really gets the love that he deserves, because Finn's a little bit of a goofy guy and is not super popular. But if you are going to go on this banner and you do manage to walk away with a couple of copies of Finn, it's actually not a bad consolation prize, because that guy does have the tools to actually be a somewhat effective farmer. I would talk about how good Ku is, but Ku is on every single banner, so you probably already got that guy NP5'd. Now, this is an interesting one because Karna is a servant that's on every single banner, but he is really good. I think if you're just looking to try to roll a really limited Lancer servant, these are the banners that I would avoid, because you should be trying to go for the more rare servants, the guys that don't come around all that often, and the guys that don't have a chance to just randomly appear in your summons when you're summoning on any old banner. But with the last anniversary, they really did help Karna out a lot, just by fixing the numbers a little bit on his battery, bringing it from a 25% battery to a 30%, which pretty much took Karna from being a character that you could not use in the buster farming meta to someone that is actually really good, because his damage was never an issue, and his power mod is also pretty stellar with him having the divine power mod. So he's just kind of a solid guy overall if you're able to pick him up. And I know why people are really going to be summoning on this banner. It's Lancer Artoria over there. Now, this is kind of copium on my part because I am a huge Lancer Artoria enjoyer. If Saber Alter can get a meta ball-busting buff, then surely her Lancer equivalent, you know, the one that's rocking Rongaminia, the thing that puts Excalibur Morgan to shame, just takes it out to pasture and calls it the little twig it is, surely this more relevant, more powerful version can get a buff, right? Now, that's definitely copium on my part. They definitely could just let this character not get a buff for like the next 3 years, but if you are a Lancer Artoria believer like myself, you could summon on this banner, because even though I would personally want to go for more of the limited characters, like say waiting for Melusine to get her own individual banner and seeing what 4-star goes up on that one, he's not a bad character to get, especially if you do need a Buster Looper. Again, just really good damage and a strong power mod against divine enemies. If your main target is going for Lancer Artoria over here, if you just want to grab yourself a couple of copies in preparation that, you know, surely her buff will be half as good as the one that they gave for Salter. But realistically, banner's a little bit of copium if you're going for Lancer Artoria Alter. And Karna's not a bad character to get, but I think it'd be wiser to just wait for him to come back around as, you know, either a free 5-star that you could pick up with, like, probably the 10th anniversary. Like, we could probably assume that we could pick up another free 5-star. I mean, you know, decade of FGO, you better be wheeling out stuff like that. It better be a free 5-star. I better be getting a free 4-star. I better be getting another free CE. Like, you better go big or go home. I mean, you see what Dokkan's doing for their 10th year anniversary? You got to do half as good as that, all right? I'm holding them up to the standard, but either that or just wait for yourself to like get him on any other random banner. Brynhildr is a little bit interesting because back in the day, she would kind of compete with Skahawk, and in fact, there were some people that thought that Brynhildr was a little bit better than Skahawk because of the Brynhildr's beloved power mod versus the divine and undead power mod that Skahawk had. You know, pretty much finding out that you would never really fight enemies that were worth their salt that had undead, but how the mighty have really fallen. I mean, Brynhildr's got all of the things in her kit that you would want, I guess, kind of a modern servant to have. A little bit of team utility, I suppose, with being able to target and donate buffs to allies, having a little bit of a battery, and not a bad power mod. I do just think she's a little behind the times. If you do like Brynhildr, or you have Sigurd and you want to complete your collection, there's no problem with going on this banner, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that this is going to be a stellar option that you're going to use all over the place, and she's going to net you very, very good results. Unfortunately, also Li Shuwen is on this banner with, just as much as I love this guy, it really sucks that he's kind of just relegated to being a one-pump chump in FGO. Both his 4 and 5-star versions are like, all right, buddy, you get one turn of buffs, and then you just gotta wait till you get them back. You know, you're not doing jack squat until those buffs come off cooldown, which is a little unfortunate. Can be really helpful early on when you're kind of going through bosses and you don't have, you know, any better options at your disposal, but this is probably one of those banners that you would want to avoid because you have a better 5-star option in Skahawk, and you have way better 4-star options in pretty much anybody else. Now, Lancer Artoria is a little bit of an interesting one. Sorry, cannot talk today, but the reason I think she's interesting is that her ruler variation recently got a buff that saved her, right? It gave her the damage she needs to be able to be an effective Buster Looper. Now, Lancer Artoria over here has said tools. She has a Mana Burst, she has 2 power mods, and she has a 50% battery, plus the additional Charisma buff to kind of give her some extra damage. The problem is all of her buffs are 1 turn, so you can't do the really powerful thing that Buster is able to do with Koya and Skaya, and that is stack your skills. You know, look at somebody like Arthur. He has the 50% mana burst, he's got the 20% attack buff, but it's the fact that you can stack those together that makes him super insane, because then you're just rocking like 40% attack, 100% buster buff, and you might just have a ridiculous power mod on super large enemies or something along those lines. So you can do really good base damage, and you can also do insane damage if any big boys want to rear their ugly heads. So if they do decide to come around and fix up Lancer Artoria over here, I think she could become a really effective Buster farmer, but we just don't live in that timeline right now. And again, very unfortunate, because as a Lancer Artoria enjoyer, I am, you know, very happy with how good Ruler Artoria is. I am so glad that they went around and they fixed her and not only just gave her a good buff, but really brought her into the fold, as it were. And I'm very happy about that. You know, Tucson, thank you very much. But can you give my girl Lancer Artoria over here a little bit of a buff? Can you just give her just a crumb of a decent buff, please? That would help her out a lot, especially for people that might be wanting to complete their collections for their Kiyohimes, because Summer Kiyohime is also on this banner. Not the best servant, but, you know, if you just like Kiyohime, she recently got a new costume over here, and you're like, you know what, I would like to also get Summer Kiyohime. Not the best 5-star servant to be going for, but who knows, she might get a buff. Sometimes they do drop buffs alongside these banners, you know, and it wouldn't be outside the realm of the possibility that they could just come along and be like, you know what, Lancer Artoria, you are a main story character. You're the final boss for Camelot. We should probably make you a little bit better. Next we have Tamamo Lancer over here. Now, some people might say that I'm coping. I don't think I'm coping. I think Tamamo Lancer is fine. I got her on my GSSR like a year ago, and people were like, L, cope, or whatever. For one, not cope. I love Tamamo. Like, even if Tamamo was the worst servant in the game, I would still be repping her, dude. I mean, like, who doesn't like a little bit of foxtail in their life? But there's also the fact that she's not bad. They fixed her third skill, so she's not just going to be stunning herself. They gave her a little bit of a 30% battery, so she does have some applicability in 90++s where you have a single target enemy, either, you know, looping a single target if it's like a 1-1-1 node, or if you just need her to chunk one large enemy, or albeit be it the boss or whatever, because she does have a male power mod as well, and she could do some decent damage. You know, NP1 is going to be a little bit rough on some of those because it's a 90++, and you're asking her to do like 1,000,000 damage, but again, you know, give and take on certain scenarios. Now, unfortunately for her, as much as I would love to just spout why you should be going for this character, there is another Buster single target Lancer that you can see right down here that I think kind of beats her out, but I'm trying my best with the propaganda on this one of like, hey, you know, like, she's not that bad. If you want Tamamo, you know, is she worth rolling for? There's probably better characters, but she's not bad, right? And I can't really run defense for the 2 4-stars over here, aside from the fact that Vlad Extra is my GOAT. He's the first character that I got on my NA account to a high NP level. I think I got him to like NP4 on the Cleo banner when I started really getting into the game at that point. And he carried me through a lot of things. You know, anybody that was evil got splattered. So aside from me really having an affinity for this character for nostalgia reasons, there's nothing really I can say about these 4-stars over here. This would be the reason why you probably wouldn't go for Tamamo Lancer if you needed a single target Buster servant, because he just beats her out in every way. Like damage, Enkidu is dropping a megaton nuke on everybody. If you were doing the ORT raid, you've seen how much damage this guy can do, even at like NP1. If you need a Buster Looper for single target purposes, this guy's got a 50% battery, right? So his battery applications are just even better. He's even not got the same survivability because, you know, he doesn't have an invul, he has a dodge, but then at the same time, he has a 10k heal as well. So it's functionally a full heal. I mean, Enkidu is just really, really nutty. And this also might be a turning point for some people. You can get Jaguar Man copies on this banner, and Lancer Raiko's on here, who, even though I don't think she's the craziest servant, she's probably got more waifu power than either of these two over here. So not only do you have a more popular and more dashing looking 4-star over here, you just have a better single target Buster servant. Plus, you can get some story copies of Jaguar Man over here if you are missing out on that. Ereshkigal is Ereshkigal. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say about this one. This is probably like the best banner we have over here, bar none. Like, I don't think any of the other Part 1 Lancer banners are even coming close to this. Ereshkigal is just bonkers. She will always be bonkers. They will not let this character be bad ever. So one of the things that was kind of hurting her initially was that she was a really good challenge quest servant, but couldn't farm very well. So then they gave her an NP upgrade, so she got more damage, but then she also got an earth power mod, which is up there with manpower mod for how good it is. And then for some reason, they also just chucked her a buff early last year where they were like, what if she was just even better into challenge quests? Like, what if she could just further dominate these things? And then they also tossed her a skin with Lost Belt 7. So just Ereshkigal people are always going to be eating. She's never going to be a bad servant. She can do damage. She can carry you through challenge quests. She has like probably one of the most broken quote-unquote charismas in the game on her third skill, if you can count that as a charisma. It's just a nutty character all around. And then even if you don't get Ereshkigal over here, you can get Parvati. Now, Parvati, I do think, is a little behind in terms of where you would want a quick looper to be nowadays, because she's very balanced. You can definitely see the older design in her kit, but it's also not bad. She was able to carry a lot of people through quick farming for a reason. She kind of just has all the basic necessities you would want a quick looper to have. And sure, she's not going to be any Dantes or Voyager or even Karen for some people, but she can still get the job done, especially if you're going really hard on this banner for Ereshkigal and you nab yourselves a couple of copies, because then you could kind of really help her up with her NP damage, get more overkill, thus do more looping. Neza's a little bit of a dud, but who knows? If we ever get a Wukong servant, maybe they'll go back around and buff Neza up a little bit, because Neza's kind of a big deal in Journey to the West, being like Wukong's rival and everything. So, you know, maybe they would go back and help her out with that one, make her live up to the hype of that character, I suppose. And I mean, Hoseween's really good, but again, you probably already have that guy NP5'd anyway. But that's it for the Part 1 Lancer banners. People that we are missing out for, aside from, say, Ereshkigal being the big megaton nuke, would be people like Melusine would be massively huge. I mean, she's going to be one that I think everybody is going to be on the lookout for as far as 5-star servants to grab. I do think Bimo will be one of those servants that people will appreciate more when he drops on the NA side of things, because I think he's really strong and definitely just flew under the radar this year for how good he was, because we had people like Tiamat and Draco releasing around him. We also have Romulus, the Grand Servant version of him, very, very powerful servant that is also very popular. I think people are going to be on the lookout for. Also remember that people like, say, Summer Melt are not on rate up right now, so also she could be tossed onto one of these banners. Could be really good. I mean, it could be something funny like Melt and Vitra go on a banner together, and then it's like, well, you're getting a Arts AoE Lancer one way or the other. But let me know if you're going to be summoning on this banner in the comment section down below, like if you're playing JP right now, or if any of these banners particularly jump out to you as an NA player and you're going to add it into your whole clairvoyance saving project you got over there. Me personally, still waiting for the Assassin banner with Koyan Sky, because look, I was able to get really lucky and snag Ruler Skadi when she came around for that, but now I just got to wait a little bit for the Koyan Sky banner. For people that are curious, it's going to be a little bit, because they're going in order. So they've done Sabers, they've done Archers, and now we're on Lancers. Each of the main classes typically take 2 weeks to get through. So not only do we have another week of Lancer, but then it's going to be 2 weeks of Rider and 2 weeks of Caster. So we have a little bit before we get Assassins. And even then, Koyan Sky is probably going to be in that second half of Assassins. So again, expect it to be about like 6 weeks away, about a month and a half-ish before she drops over here. If you're like me and you're wanting to use some of your Buster AoE servants, we got Tayamami, we got, Kukulkan over here, we have Ace. I would love to be able to use them in different team comps if they would only give me Koyan Sky, but that's just me throwing myself a little bit of a pity party. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. But with all that being said, I'll catch y'all later today for the stream, and with all that being said, I'm out. Peace, late.